Mark Rogers TV talking Boston College football. Let's not be surprised that the BC Eagles had 3 NFL draft picks, 2 along the offensive line, 1 along the defensive line. We bring in Dan Rubin of BC Interruption, our Boston College connection, to talk up the Eagles. Dan, of course, thanks so much for joining us. Let's look at what you lost and how you're going to possibly replace these guys. So it's pretty serious along the offensive line. Andy Kavalec goes in the 6th round to Tennessee. Ian Silberman goes in the 6th round as well to the San Francisco 49ers. Bob Fedaro, not drafted. I'm sure he's in a camp somewhere, who played tackle, who's a big loss as well. So 3 mainstays along the offensive front. So who are those new guys that we can look out for?
It's a good question. We're actually not really
the answers, Dan.
We're actually not really too sure. The offensive line is ravaged. It's going to be really interesting. They always talk about BC as O-line U, but they're gonna really put that to the test this year. They didn't have a spring game because they didn't have enough healthy offensive linemen. They get Harris Williams back from injury, but at the same time, anytime you're saying, well, I'm glad I got an offensive lineman with experience back because he had a nasty knee injury that cost him the whole season, you're kind of worried about that. You're always worried about something like that with a guy coming back from injury. So it's going to be interesting. I always call it fun because I love seeing what the coaches can dial up if they change the schemes. For me to watch it, it's always fun to watch, but I'm sure there's going to be some growing pains, and fun is going to turn to not so fun at times, especially with the first couple weeks.
And these offensive linemen enjoy run blocking over pass blocking, and it's easier to learn. So Darius Wade may be forewarned there. All right, let's look at the defense. You lose a couple of good ones. You got Brian Mahalik, who went in the 7th round to the Eagles, 5.5 tackles for loss, led the team with 4.5 sacks. And then Josh Keys at outside linebacker, 11.5 tackles for loss, led the team there, 4 sacks. So you got, again, D-end, outside linebacker, a couple of those guys that rush the passer and get into the backfield. Any impact players on the horizon?
Steven Daniels is going to be the guy to watch. He's going to be the big linebacker for the Eagles this year. He kind of quarterbacks the defense. He's very good at reading offenses and calling out the signals from the linebacker position. He really needs to make another jump. He's made the jump to being an impact linebacker, but when you're looking at Boston College and you're talking about the lineage of linebackers, you're really hoping that he can make the next jump and remain a tackle machine who, like a Luke Kuechly or like a Mark Herzlich, that was very good in coverage. That'll spell the defensive backs, because you can go to a 3 defensive back setting and almost play a third safety, because a guy who's the middle linebacker can go cover the slot receiver if the guy's coming over the middle. So that's something that we're really looking for out of Daniels. On the defensive line, Kevin Kavalec hopefully becomes a monster this year. He's a guy that was good in the sporadic flashes that we saw out of him last year. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens to him this year. If he can become the next lineman, it's going to be really hard to replace Mahalik, especially because anytime you have a defensive lineman that's 6'9", he's going to be tough to block and tough to get your hands on. So it's going to be, when the downsizing in size, it's going to be really interesting to watch Kavalec step in and really make the transition to the Mahalik position.
Okay, after 2-10, a couple bowl appearances for Boston College, they seem to be on the ascension. Adazio doing a fine job. We'll see if they can shore up the offensive line and fill in for a couple of key players on defense that really caused havoc in the opponent's backfield. Dan Rubin joins us from BC Interruption. Dan, we always appreciate the time, man.
Anytime.